Good morning. Welcome to episode 172.
Good morning.
It is 2024,
Whoa.
second week of 2024, and I hope that your new year is getting off to a better start than mine is.
What's wrong with your new year?
A couple things. First of all, Iowa lost 35-0 in their bowl game.
Oh, right. I do remember that.
Had a great time at the game, but the game itself was not much.
Yeah.
And then I learned a valuable lesson at the beginning of the year that I hope will carry through all the way through the year. Never help your wife with anything because it just leads to pain and misery.
Truth.
So I was helping her put things away in the garage, and we had somebody stop by the house, and she was talking with this person. Carla, I think it's your fault. So rather than bother my wife, who was going to help me move the generator, I picked it up on my own, and when I turned to set it back down, my back I could hear it and feel it pop. And
yeah.
So that's how my New Year's been.
Yeah.
So I hope yours has been better.
Me too. I've had a great New Year's. For one, I don't care about sports, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Two, I was talking with a friend rather than helping him with the generator, so
It was a win-win scenario for you.
a great New Year's. But I feel bad for you, and I love you.
Yeah. Win-win scenario.
Yeah. So how about you? What's going on in your New Year's? Hopefully it's more like mine and less like his.
Yeah. All right, you ready to do this?
Let's do it.
Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas, and this is my wife, Lucky. Lovely lady.
Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 172 of the Family Meeting Podcast. We're glad that you're with us today. On today's episode, we're going to talk about teaching your children practical life skills. We as parents cannot rely on the school system or anyone else to teach our kids the life skills they need to know to succeed when they leave our house and spread their wings. We have a responsibility to prepare them. So we're going to talk about some things that you can do to prepare your kids with practical life skills. Even if your kids are already grown and they're out of the house, maybe you see that they're struggling in certain areas, you can always offer to help, and maybe they're needing a little bit of help. So,
well, and I think this kind of touches on an issue that some parents have. I've noticed this in the church world, being a youth pastor for so long. Some parents would just turn their kids over to me and expect me to do all the spiritual training for them. And it's like, you don't understand. What I do is to supplement what you do at home. Like, I don't have them enough to have the proper influence. And I think sometimes as parents, we can do that with education, whether it's life skills or whatever else. We send them there so they can teach them, when the main responsibility falls on us to make sure that they're prepared and equipped to be able to go into the world and make an impact and change it.
That's right. And maybe your kids are grown and gone and you have grandkids. I am telling you, grandparents are an amazing blessing in a child's life. I mean, I remember my grandma taught me several practical life skills. She taught me things about cooking. She taught me things about sewing. She taught me a lot. And so I would say, just because you're like, oh, my kids are grown and gone, this is still applicable to you. You can teach your grandchildren, or if you don't have grandchildren, you can teach other kids who are in your life, and make a difference. Maybe it's nieces, nephews, maybe it's neighborhood kids and friends, children and stuff. Be a help to the kids in your life, and their parents will appreciate it too.
Yes, they will. But before we jump into today's episode, I want to encourage you to jump into the Family Meeting community group on Facebook. We have had an interesting conversation in the last 24 hours because yesterday marked 21 years ago that I asked Lysandra to be my wife.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made in my entire life, and has really impacted me for the better.
Thank you.
You are the best part of my life. Best decision I ever made was asking you, will you marry me?
Thanks for asking.
Is that the worst decision you ever made, was saying yes?
No, but some people are commenting on there like, I can't believe she said yes. And I replied, I was very confused.
Yeah.
No, not really. I knew exactly that was what God had planned for my life. I knew that you were the one I was supposed to marry. I had no doubts. It wasn't even a second thought. I knew that this was what God wanted. And it's what I wanted. I was excited to start our journey together. And you've only gotten better, like a fine wine.
Yes, definitely. But it got me curious about when other people proposed.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating to see the different times of the year that people chose to propose and even where they chose to propose.
Yeah.
So for some people, I forget who it was. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I think it was Cheyenne who hers was on December 31st. I don't remember the year, but I was like, that's kind of a cool way to end the year.
Yeah.
Is with a proposal.
Yeah.
And for somebody else, I think Pammy was December 24th.
Oh,
so
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas Eve. Cool. Like, what a great Christmas that was. I saw a few in June. Somebody said, oh, where was it? Somebody got engaged in the parking lot. Where was it? I forget now.
I feel like you've said enough saying in the parking lot. That's all we need to know to be like, wah, wah, wah.
No, but it was like where they worked or something. I forget.
Oh, okay.
I forget the scenario.
So
but
it was like romantic for them.
Yeah, it was fitting for their life. And so it was just interesting to see the different things. And then some people remembered and or didn't remember. And they're like, I don't know. We'll have to check with the spouse and see.
So in full Lysandra fashion, I missed this anniversary yesterday and forgot.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I saw the way that I knew that it was our proposal anniversary is because you posted in Family Meeting Community.
Actually, I posted on my own pictures and all that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That was where it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so I was like, oh, happy anniversary, babe.
Yeah.
Yes, Thomas is very forgiving, which is lovely.
So jump in. I'd love to have that conversation, have you join us in that conversation and hear a little bit about your story and how you guys got together.
And maybe you're already in the Family Meeting community. Invite a friend who you think would enjoy or would benefit from not only the lighthearted side of it, but also some of the encouragement that's posted in there for your family relationships. All right, let's talk about these life skills that are kind of outdated now in a lot of schools. I actually have had some conversations with moms who are frustrated that the generation growing up today is not getting life skills. I've heard people say, why is geometry a required credit to graduate high school, but cooking isn't? Or tax, like learning to do your taxes, understanding personal finance and understanding how to, well, balance a checkbook. That's a little outdated, but you get what we're saying, how to handle your personal finances. And so that just kind of got us thinking, maybe this is something we need to talk about. How many other people are frustrated about that or maybe concerned about the future generations?
I get what they're saying, but I also understand the other side as well. Like I understand going and taking a course to figure out how to do taxes.
Yeah.
But being frustrated because they're not being taught cooking at school, to me, that's not really a school class. That's a at home with either mom or dad, because I know either one could cook or both of them could like to cook or whatever. But that's a special family bonding moment in time that I think we as parents need to make sure we're taking care of. So
I agree. Yeah, and I'm sure that there's a lot of different opinions on what is the responsibility of the school and what is the responsibility of the parent and so on and so forth. Ultimately, as you said before, it comes down to us as parents. We are the ones who are responsible to make sure that our kids are well-rounded and prepared for life, not only in math, science, history, English, and so on, but also in these life skills. Yeah,
I send my kids off to school so that the school can teach them the things I don't want to teach them.
Yeah, or the things you don't have to relearn from
exactly.
high school.
I don't want to teach them geometry. I want school to do that.
Yeah.
They've gotten to a point in some of their math where they'll come and ask questions, and I'm like, now you have a teacher. Like, you call your teacher first, and I'll come help you if they can't help you.
Yes.
But I would have to spend time relearning everything that you're learning right now so that I can teach you. Yes, I did it, and I could get up to speed probably quicker than they could to learn it so I could teach them, but it still would take a lot of time.
So we do a hybrid kind of version of homeschooling in our family. So our kids stay at home and get to go to school here at home, but they have some subjects that they do online through our virtual school, and they have teachers at their disposal. Like they have teachers that are 5 days a week, like normal school hours. They can text and call or have Zoom calls and everything to help them with their specific subjects. It's fantastic.
It's really cool thing Florida does, where literally these teachers' job is to oversee homeschoolers and make sure.
Yeah, it has been a huge blessing in our family. Let's look, though, at what some other people are saying about this. There is a post that was put in the Daily Health Post editorial, and it says this: there are people who believe that the courses are outdated and aren't appropriate for the cutting-edge modules in school. Many students are more likely to know how to compose a Shakespearean sonnet, but know very little about taxes, credit cards, or finances. This exposes an imbalance in our educational system, where high school students enter the real world with very little real-world knowledge. Some parents are concerned that their kids don't have the necessary skills needed to survive in the real world as adults.
And that's quite an interesting thing, and it has me curious for our listeners who are out there. When you were in school, did you have to learn about taxes and credit cards and finances and all of those things? Did you have a course where they taught you those things, or did you learn them at home? Did you have to learn about it yourself with just trial and error? I'm kind of curious about our listeners and what it is for them. Because what about you? Did you have to learn about it in school?
So here you guys are listening to two podcasters who were both homeschooled. So I was homeschooled, and there was no like cooking course or sewing course or anything like that. But
Wait, you were homeschooled? You didn't have a cooking course or a...
No, I did
Sewing 101, Crock-Pot 203?
Crock-Pot Cooking 101. I did not.
Oh, wow.
I did not.
That explains a lot.
I had some real...
Please don't hurt me.
Oh, I'm going to hurt you.
I could
but
not.
I'm not going to do it when it's being recorded.
I could not pass that up. If you don't hear from me by next week, I'll call the police.
This is the end of the family meeting. It's just going to be the Lysandra show from now on.
People would probably like that.
What was I saying?
You were talking about being homeschooled, how you didn't take those courses.
No,
but
those were not courses. I had real math people. I had science. I had history. I had English and all of that. But my mom did make sure that I took as an elective a business math course. So it did teach me insurance, interests, taxes, like all of that kind of stuff. And I was very prepared to handle our finances when we went and got married at a very, very young age, 18 years old, married, and I was ready to handle our household. Thomas never had to take a peek at it.
I did, though, I took business math. I took a personal finance course.
Okay.
And so I know I personally was taught about these things. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're currently being taught to students, that I do have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I have heard that there's a shift. And see, we're speaking from a homeschooler's perspective about public schools. We don't really know. And private schools, too. But I know that like, I think I know that in the 60s and 70s, like, there was home economics.
Oh, yeah.
Which was cooking, sewing. You had to, like, make clothing. Because my aunts have told me about this. They talk about how they learned to sew in home economics and how they had to make their own dress. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to think about that. I think that is now outdated.
Well, and it's just, you think about the shift that our culture took, especially after, World War I, I think, where most women before that time, they stayed home. They just took care of the family. They did the cooking, the sewing, the cleaning, all that kind of stuff. But as the wars came, men went off to war and women filled the workplace. Yep. And there was this huge change of culture shift in our culture. And so now more and more women are going to work and having those opportunities, using the skills and the intellect and all the things that God has given to them and the things that they work for, which to me is a wonderful thing. But
Yes.
there had to be a shift in school away from some of those things, because like that's just not the way the world worked anymore.
Right.
And so you didn't necessarily have a home economic course for women to take.
So whether or not you believe that schools should or should not be teaching home economics or personal life skills or personal finance, that's really not the topic of our conversation today. The topic of our conversation is we as parents need to make sure that they're prepared no matter what the schools are teaching.
Yeah.
So sometimes life can pass us by and we can unintentionally miss opportunities to teach our kids the things they need to succeed on their own. I mean, if we don't really think about it, all of a sudden they're in high school and we realize, oh man, we missed a lot of years that we could have used to prepare them. So today we want to talk about the importance of teaching our kids life skills that they need to be successful in their next steps in life, whatever that is. It may be college, it may be marriage, it may be directly to a career, military, or whatever it is. We want them to be ready, right? We want them to be prepared. And no matter what your child's age is, you need to start thinking about when and what you want to teach them. So we're going to talk about some of those today.
Yeah, and the thing is, if we leave it to the schools alone to teach our kids life skills, they won't be ready. Schools and teachers can only do so much. And I always throw in there about pastors and youth leaders and Sunday school teachers and whatever else as well, as far as the spiritual aspect. That's a whole nother podcast episode, but we have to take responsibility for our kids. And I know that those of you who are listening to a podcast about family, you are people who take ownership and responsibility for your kids, for your family, and we encourage you with that. And that's just part of the conversation today is, okay, what are some things maybe we need to think about? What do we as parents think they need to know? What do you wish you knew when you graduated high school?
Yeah.
You know, what are some of the gaps maybe you had? And I got married and I wasn't ready to handle the finances, or man, I wasn't prepared to have to figure out what to eat every day, all day. What's for dinner?
I still don't know how to do that.
So,
Isn't the worst question, women, isn't the worst question your family can ask you, what's for dinner? Every single day.
and men, isn't it one of the best questions your wife can ask you is, will you handle dinner tonight?
Yeah, like you love that. Then you just order pizza.
I order pizza or something. It's
And
like,
you know what I learned? Don't ask you to handle dinner.
mission accomplished,
Because
gentlemen.
I'm in charge of the personal finances. And I'm like, dude, we can't afford pizza every night. And it wouldn't be good for us either.
But it would be good.
Yeah. It would-
So, you know, what did you learn, or what courses did you take that prepared you well for life? And the answer to those questions become your list of what practical life skills to teach your kids.
Okay, so we've just been talking a little bit about cooking. What's for dinner?
Yeah, what's for dinner? But I think also we have to think about not necessarily, we've got to think about some things we never had to think about.
Oh, yes, we do. Because
So,
it's different.
computer skills, the digital stuff, all of that, you
They
know.
need to be prepared for
Social
the
media,
computers. Yep.
like all those things are a normal part of life now.
Yeah, those are life skills now.
So you got to think about some things that necessarily have nothing to do with you or your interests, but this is the world my kids live in now.
Yeah. That's tough. Okay, let's start though with cooking. Let's talk a little bit
Let's
about
do it.
cooking. All right. So what are the actual life skills that your kids need to be able to run a household or handle their own lives once they leave? Basics, you guys. They've got to learn how to read a recipe. Now, our youngest is 13 now. And it's funny because, and you guys know this, you know this in your own families. When the oldest was 12, she was doing so much more than the youngest was at 12.
Totally.
Because
Yeah.
the older sisters are doing this stuff, so the youngest one is like not learning as fast because she doesn't have to, but the oldest one, they seem so grown up at 12 because the other ones are so little. So it's kind of funny how that works. But our 12-year-old did not learn to cook as soon as our older two. And so she probably started around 11 or 12 where she was actually going to make her own recipe by herself in the kitchen. And if I remember correctly, it was just like a pack of a muffin mix packet. So very simple. In fact, the kind that we buy.
You add water, maybe an egg or something.
No, you add a half a cup of water and mix.
Yeah.
Period. That's it.
And I think she added 2 cups of water.
I think she added 1 cup. So she doubled the water. So it was weird because it was too much. It may have been 2 cups. I don't know. Anyway, it was way too much water. So it was very thin, but she also had never made them for herself. So she didn't know. So she just put them all in the mug. It was just terrible. It was a disaster.
Yeah. She had a fiasco with macaroni and cheese too, where it was like, she had a way too much milk, and it literally was like noodle milk soup.
Yeah.
With a little bit, a hint of cheese powder.
Yes.
So she made mac and cheese. You guys were gone last night at ladies' night, and it was just her and Isabella. And so she made macaroni and cheese and did a fantastic job, by the way.
Yes, and she's only 13. So it hasn't taken her that long to figure these things out. But reading a recipe, right? And honestly, they have to make some mistakes before they can do it. Sometimes that's the best way to learn, right?
It is. And, I needed to remind myself that she didn't learn as quickly as others. And that's because she didn't start as soon as others. And that was maybe a failing on our part as parents, because you just get, Catherine will do it.
Yeah, Catherine.
Or Isabella will do it.
So they just do it because they can. And there's not the need necessarily to teach the younger.
But I kind of forgot about that. And so when she made that mistake, I'm looking at this 12-year-old like, how do you not know how to write a recipe? Like, how hard is this? And which didn't help the situation.
Right.
But I had to take ownership of that. Being somebody who also cooks in the house, it's like, I know how to read recipe. I could have taken the time to teach her how to do that and what all these different symbols and little things mean. But
well, and it's not necessarily that she wasn't taught, because I did go through all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
practice.
It's practice. Yep. She had to have practice. And, if you read it quickly, you read right past it. So simple things like reading a recipe and practicing a recipe.
How do you remember how old Catherine was when you first started with her?
Oh, probably 10, maybe even 9.
Yeah. I want to say maybe even earlier.
Maybe earlier. Yeah, with that kind of stuff. With like, put water in the mix, put it in muffin tins and put it in the oven. Or mac and cheese, or the simple things. Ramen,
Yeah, because you would measure it out, and then when they were toddlers, let them dump it in.
Oh, yes. Yes, they would sit on the counter with me and cook. So they've been in the kitchen the whole time. But whether you have boys or girls, they need to know how to cook. They need to know how to read a recipe. I was just telling Catherine, because she's now 18, and I am a control freak. I like to just do things myself. I'm not really looking for a lot of help necessarily. Like, I want help, but I want you to like, go grab me that, get this out of the fridge. I just want to do it myself.
You want the control.
I want the control. Yes.
That's what it is.
And I'm aware of it, and I'm working on it. Okay. I'm not like, I know that I'm like this and this is just how I am. No, I am aware that I'm like this and I'm working on it. But I told Catherine, I said, Catherine, I really need to make sure that you know some basics of cooking now that you're 18. Like things like when I walk into a kitchen and I just have all these random ingredients, I can create something on my own. Now, Catherine can read a recipe. All of the girls can read a recipe and can handle a recipe. They make dinner for us frequently. But the things that I want to teach her are things like how to make a roux, how to create a sauce, how to look at these ingredients and, okay, I can make a soup out of this.
Like, these things go together, these things don't.
Yeah, some simple things like that. So that's something that is kind of on my list, on my radar of things I want her to know so that she can have an easier time in the kitchen when she is out of the house, but for each of the kids.
Well, and I just think about what a family bond that creates while you're in the kitchen cooking.
Yeah.
There's just something about that time together that creates so many wonderful memories. Mm-hmm. And you think about the people that taught you how to cook, the fond memories you have of them, like that'll never go away.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, and all of our girls now, they really enjoy looking up recipes and then, all right, I want to make it.
Yep, I love it. It's fantastic.
And so part of teaching them about the cooking is looking at a recipe and, all right, serving size. And looking at all the ingredients and having to do the shopping for it. And so that's another life skill that our kids need to know is, how do I go grocery shopping? And I really don't think most dads are equipped for this. Most dads will walk down. All right, I'm going to say, if you're a dad like me, okay?
Okay.
I know there are dads out there that you are killing it, and you shop the way you're supposed to shop. But I'll just walk down, and it's like, oh, pizza rolls. The kids will be like, can we get cereal? Yeah. Can we get this? Yes.
That's why you don't go to the grocery store. I don't let you go most of the time.
Not often. Some family day mornings, I'll take the girls, and you'll sit and drink coffee or whatever, and we'll come back with all kinds of garbage because it's family day.
Yeah.
But they need to know how to shop for the ingredients, how to do the meal planning that they're going to do, and have how many gallons of milk do I need for my family size that will go through without it spoiling.
Right.
How can I look at this, the price of this and the size of it, and make sure I'm paying the right price per unit? And all of those things where they can be wise with their money and get what they need as well. And you think about how much groceries, the cost of them,
they have gone up by like 50%.
Has just gone up
in the last couple of years. Yeah.
So crazy.
Yep.
And so it becomes that much more important to be able to look at this and know, because companies are getting very good at not changing the size of the box, but changing out the amount that you're getting in the box. And so just paying attention to, all right, how much am I actually paying per ounce? How many cents per ounce for this? And being able to compare and shop and get the right thing and the right deal and all of that. And that does take some, that takes some teaching.
It does. And it's so much easier to just go grocery shopping. Grocery shopping can already be this whole thing. And I know a lot of you wonderful people get your groceries delivered to your house, or you do the pickup and you just shop online. Great. Teach your kid how to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's easier to just do it than to teach someone to do it. Right? But unfortunately, parenting was never promised to be easy. If we're going to do it right, it's going to be difficult. Anything worth doing is probably going to be difficult. And so it's harder to teach that skill than it is to just do it yourself. But sometimes we're going to have to take the hit and teach the kids.
Well, and I think the best way to do that is to walk them through it, right? So it depends on how old your kid is. But no matter how old they are, you can start to teach them little things about it. And so if they're at an age where they can kind of start to reason some things out, it's like, okay, let's talk about and have them kind of develop a meal plan. You know, what are some meals that we want to make this week? All right, let's look at the recipe or whatever and figure out what are the ingredients we need, and then have them make a shopping list. All right, how many of each of these different things do we need? And of course, you're going to supervise and not just let them purchase.
Yeah.
If you're shopping online. Add to cart, but we're walking them through it. We're trying to help them understand how to logically think through the whole process. And then, of course, you get into, all right, if you're online, it's a lot easier. You're just pushing a couple of buttons. But if you're there, all right, how do we check out and all that kind of stuff? And so it's just part of the process.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about another life skill. How about the financial aspect of living life? And this covers a lot of stuff.
This could be a whole episode in and of itself.
It could. Budgeting, taxes, saving, banking, Financial Peace University, giving, all of these different things. Okay, so we're going to kind of break some of these down. Let's talk about budgeting. Budgeting is very important. Our kids need to learn how to do it. They should have a budget as teenagers. Basically, as soon as they begin to earn income, they need to have a budget. So maybe they're mowing lawns, maybe they're babysitting here and there, maybe they are cleaning for grandma and grandpa, like wherever. Once they start receiving money as income, it's a great time for you to start helping them walk through a budget. You can do this by showing them your budget. I hope you have a budget. You should have a budget. Show them your budget, or go ahead and just take them and create their own budget. And they may not have any real expenses, right? Your child may be a 10-year-old who's raking leaves, okay? And they get $25 a year. So the budget will be very simple. The budget might look like, I want to buy some gum, or I want to buy my sister a Christmas present, or whatever. So whatever the budget looks like, have them write down what it is and then teach them how to stick to it. And this goes along with saving and spending and giving. These are all things that need to be taught in that budget.
And that's part of your budget. And what we've kind of done for our kids is we tell them, all right, first of all, 10% that we give that back to God. That's our tithe. And so that's the very first thing that we have on the budget before we do anything else is, all right, this is what we give. And then we have, all right, what do we want to save? And I think before our kids, we've talked about, I think we said 20%. Is that what we said?
Yeah.
And so we said, all right, 20% is going to go right in your savings. You can save more than that if you want. We encourage you to save more than that. But this is how we're going to start. And then the rest is for spending on what you need or want to spend it on. And so it's just starting out small for that. You know, when they're young and they don't really have a lot of expenses, you might start and say, hey, we want you to save 50%.
Yeah.
And just teach them the value of learning how to save, but they need to do that. And Lysandra, you mentioned Financial Peace University, which is great because they do have courses for kids, for teenagers and all that.
And our kids are part of a homeschool co-op. And this year, our kids are going through Financial Peace University at the co-op. And I forced, like most of the classes, I let the kids pick themselves. But I was like, this is not an option. You will take this class this year.
Yeah.
So our three oldest, Catherine, Isabella, and Abigail, are taking Financial Peace University in their co-op, and I'm a teacher's assistant in there, so I get to go through it too. And I knew it would be good for me too to have a little refresh on it and just maybe help me tighten up a little bit. And sometimes we need reminders. So I've been enjoying it very much, and highly recommend if you haven't taken it. Get the course online and do it as a family. It'd be great for like a series of family meetings for you guys, and then talk about it. But my kids have nicknamed the class.
What do they name it?
It's called Anxiety Class.
Oh, that's funny. Because they're learning about the bills and all the responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're all like, what if we get into debt? I'm like, no, you don't need to like take this to the next level extreme and be worried about debt, but you need to like just be smart with your money and stuff.
That's why we're teaching you to save now.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it's really cute.
And budget now.
But it's great. And so I do highly recommend that to you.
All right. So they need to know about cars, basic car maintenance.
Yeah.
Things like changing a tire.
Yeah.
Checking their oil, tire pressure. How do I put air in my tire if my tire gets low?
Yep.
And so I'm helping them to be able to learn a few of those things that are simple. I'm not a car person. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a car fix-it guy.
But you change a mean tire, baby.
I know how to change a tire. I can change a tire.
I don't even know how many tires you've changed in your life. It feels like you are always changing a tire for me or for someone else.
Yeah, but it's an important thing to learn.
Yeah.
And it's something even our daughters, we want them to know. There's a lot about cars that I do not know. And I'm okay with that. But I know how to do the basic things, the basic maintenance to help get our car along. Things like, okay, how often do I need to take my car in to get an oil change? When does that need to happen? And just all of those little things. Cars have become a lot more complicated to work on. And I'm thankful for those who do it. In fact, we just had a guy at our house fixing our timing belt.
This morning.
Finished it today. So shout out to Stepler Motors for the great work that Mike did for us.
In our driveway. That was nice.
Yeah. But it's a job I have no idea how to do, where to start, and I don't have the time to do it. But there are certain things that, hey, I do know how to do. It's important for me to learn how to do. And it's important for our kids to learn as well. I can change the oil myself if I choose to use my time that way. I know how to now change the light bulbs.
Yes.
And the brake lights and all those sorts of things.
Hey, honey, we have a brake light out.
Yeah, I need to get on that. Okay. But I know how to do that.
You know how to do it, and you will.
But spark plugs, like I can change spark plugs.
Yeah.
That's a rather simple thing, but
the things that you know how to do are the things you should teach your kids.
Exactly.
Like there are a bunch of things you don't know how to do. Don't worry about teaching that to your kids. Teach them how to save their money to pay someone to do that.
Yeah, and those are relatively quick things that it's like you can do yourself and save yourself a lot of money, and it's not really a lot of know-how. But they do need to know how to pump gas.
Yes.
I remember when a few states finally passed laws that let people pump gas for themselves, and the news stories for weeks were just about all the mishaps because these people had never learned how to pump gas. And I was just like, how do you not know how to do that? Like, I've been doing that since I was a kid.
When my grandpa died, my grandpa Butler died, grandma was probably in her 60s or 70s, I'm not sure which, and she had never pumped gas. And so when she died, she had to be taught by her children, her adult children, how to pump gas because grandpa did everything. So it's kind of an interesting thing there. Make sure that your kids know the basics. Right?
Yeah.
All right, how about cleaning? They need to understand how to clean, and I don't know. Some people need to know how to clean, okay? Some people just don't even get, like, this is how you clean this, okay? So, yeah, you need to be teaching that. Hopefully you're doing that at a very young age for your kids. But the more important aspect of teaching cleaning, in my opinion, is the why. Why do we clean? Because if your kids don't care about cleaning...
Some of them won't. Some of them will, some of them won't.
Yeah. But helping them to understand, like, if we don't clean, this is what happens. You know, and you can talk about bugs coming in and smells and people not wanting to be near you.
Yeah.
There are consequences for not cleaning. And man, some of the best learning experiences for my kids were when they had to stay in places that were not clean. And they would come home to me and say, thank you for making us clean.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we have you clean.
Exactly. And then there are times when they don't want to clean. And I'm like, do you remember how you felt when you were over there?
Do you want your friends to feel that way when they come over here?
No. Okay, let's get to it. Yeah. So cleaning, and I don't think we need to go in depth on that, but something to think about.
What about food and nutrition? And we talked about cooking already, and referenced a lot of the family day garbage stuff that we'll get from time to time. But teaching them about food and nutrition, that what's healthy, what's not, what's beneficial, what's not. And, you know, there are certain people that I know where it's like they're adults with grandchildren that don't understand nutrition.
Right.
And so understanding the different things that will help your body be the best that it can be, and, you know, just to be healthy and all those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I think, too, figuring out the balance here, because you can go extreme in one way or the other. So
yeah,
we've already talked about pizza rolls and ramen and mac and cheese on this podcast.
Yeah.
But that is not the norm in our house. The norm in our house, and the kids know this, when we make a meal, the idea is a meat and a vegetable. That's the meal. So what kind of meat do you want? What kind of vegetable do you want? And that's the meal. And so we often will have lots of different meat options and then lots of different vegetable options. And then they can create the meal that they want. But they understand that that's what they're going for. And then, of course, we have times when, you know, only 2 kids are at home. And so they're going to make a box of mac and cheese. And that's going to be their meal for the night or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the balance comes in, because there are times when you do need to just grab a bag of pizza rolls and run, and I get that. But try to have some balance there with your nutrition as well, and make sure they understand it.
And I think learn how to make some healthy substitutes.
Yeah.
You know, and so there are times where we're trying to be a little bit more healthy. And so, all right, how can we substitute to make this a healthier dish? And we're going to take out the pasta noodles and we're going to use zucchini noodles, which we enjoy.
We all love.
Or instead of having regular rice for this dish, we're going to have riced cauliflower, riced broccoli, or something like that.
Which is very
the girls just made a meal, was it yesterday, for lunch? And instead of using rice, they chose to use rice broccoli, which that's all part of it. Is like, okay, we really enjoy this, but you know, what's maybe a healthier, better option?
Exactly. Health and safety is also a course that I think used to be the norm in schools, and I'm not sure if it is anymore, but either way, it should be something we're teaching our kids, health and safety, and simple things about fires and fire alarms and first aid kits and how to handle that, what to do in emergency situations, all of that comes into play. And I feel like the food and nutrition kind of goes right into the health aspect, but there's also the side of health of exercise and activity. So be thinking about those things.
Well, and I think personal safety too. Well, we try to strike a balance between making our children aware and not making them fear their surroundings.
Yeah.
But just teaching them, hey, when you're out and about, have your head up, be looking around, paying attention to who's around you. Don't walk through a parking lot with your head down looking at your phone.
Right.
Especially having females, like having girls. Pay attention to your surroundings. Lysandra, you just had an incident not long ago at one of the stores in town where some guy was following you around, watching you, and you and Violet were shopping, and it was obvious that everywhere you turned, this guy was there all of a sudden.
Yeah, and way too close. And at one point I had to, at the beginning of it. So at the beginning, I did not know that he was a threat. At the beginning, he was just a guy in an aisle. And I needed to get past him. So I walked past him. And when you come across somebody in an aisle and they're trying to get past you, kind of like move a little to let the person through.
Yeah, especially in a smaller, tighter store.
Yeah, and he did not move. Like, he wanted me to almost have to touch him to get past him. So of course I put my basket in between myself and him, and the basket touched him to get past. And I was like, oh, that was weird. So immediately now my radar is up and I'm watching this guy. And sure enough, he followed me and Violet all over the store. And I didn't say much to her. Well, he was too close to really say anything unless I wanted a confrontation. So I didn't really say anything to Violet, but before we were even finished, we hadn't finished getting all the supplies that we need, but I told her, I said, we need to check out right now. And she said, okay. And she could sense it. She could sense my
urgency.
So she followed me to the checkout line. And once we were in view of the cashier, he wandered off somewhere else. And she said, that guy seemed so creepy. I said, he was, baby. And she's like, was he following us? And I said, yeah, he was. And I'm glad that you noticed. That's good. And that's why we're leaving right now. So she said, okay. So as soon as we walked out of the store, he walked out of the store. And so then I was ready. I was ready to fight this guy.
Yeah.
I had to. But he just watched us walk to the car, get in the car, and we drove away, and we were safe. But I used that as an opportunity to talk to her about being aware of your surroundings, and if you have an instinct, trust it. And it's probably right. Your instinct is probably right if you feel like somebody's watching me, somebody's following me, and to just get yourself to safety as soon as possible. But
just like, hey, you can stay at the cash register and ask a worker to walk you out to your car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And simple things like if you're going to your car and you see something on your car, whether it's on typically they'll put things on your window or whatever, not stopping and picking whatever that is off your window, getting in the car, locking it, moving to a different location before you bother with all of that. So just things, simple safety things about, hey, pay attention.
Yeah. How about childcare? Thomas, how old were you when you learned to change a diaper?
17.
Yeah. Why?
Because I have a brother who's 17 years younger than me.
Yeah. So Thomas was like ready. He was ready for fatherhood.
Yep. I knew all about taking care of kids.
Yeah. He knew how to feed with a bottle.
Yep.
You knew how to babysit. You knew how to hold a baby. You knew how to feed a baby once the baby was old enough to have little baby food. I mean, you were totally ready to go.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
I was as well. My cousin, Natasha, was born when I was 10. But I was kind of an older 10-year-old too. And I babysat her. So I learned how to change her diapers and feed her and all that stuff when I was 10. And then I started babysitting for her and other kids when I was 11. So we were both very much ready to handle infants and babies.
Yep.
We knew exactly what we were doing. But does your child, do our kids, have they learned that? I remember teaching our girls how to do this.
Yeah.
It was when they first began to babysit some friends of ours, boys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to teach them to change diapers, which that was interesting
It's
too.
quite an experience because we're a household of girls, and so there's
Yeah.
a lot of information they didn't know.
I had to be like, okay, that's what this is, and it's okay, and this is how you change the diaper, and everything's
Cover that thing up as fast as possible, or you will get urine on you.
Exactly. So that was interesting. So our kids know how to handle babies. They know how to feed babies and all of that good stuff. Maybe your kids have littler cousins and they're learning that. But if not, make sure that you've talked to them about that before they grow up and they get out of the house. All right. How about sewing?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about sewing.
Can you sew a button on?
I cannot.
Can you?
I mean, I probably could, but tying the knot to actually get the button to stay on would be another story.
Yeah. So all of our kids know how to sew buttons on. All of our kids know how to sew up like a little hole in a shirt or a hole in something. They know how to sew all that up. I taught the girls probably around 8 or 9, between 8 and 10, probably how to use a sewing machine. They started out with just scrap fabric and learned how to make pillowcases for their Barbies.
Yeah, they love that.
It's a very simple thing to teach. The hardest part of sewing machines is threading the machine. But once you've got that down, you can sew your heart away. And some of the kids really stuck to it. Like Isabella started making Barbie clothes and all that stuff. She had such a good time. Now she has no interest in sewing, which is fine. But if she needs it, she's got the tool.
But she's doing the needlework. What is that she's learning?
Embroidery.
Yeah, so she knows how to do that.
Yep, so she's doing embroidery. But all the girls have been taught these things. And they may never need them, but I want them to have the tools in their tool belt.
Violet just made a pillow for Shelly.
For Christmas.
Flamingo pillow for
Yep.
Christmas.
Yep.
So she just did. I made her an actual pillow.
Yeah. She's sewing scrunchies and sewing all kinds of little things. And
Having fun with it.
yep. So it's a great thing. They do need that life skill for sure.
It's definitely a gap I had, but luckily we were married early enough that I never had to worry about that myself.
Yeah. I got your buttons, baby.
That's good. Maybe gardening. You know, do they know how to do that basic life skill of being able to plant something and grow it? And
You know what? The hardest part I think maybe of gardening could be is not just planting it and growing it, but using it before it rots. Using it in a recipe or getting it to the point where it's ready to be consumed.
depending upon how well you do at gardening. Yeah, but when we were in Iowa, we had raised garden bed. And so the girls had a responsibility to take care of it, and they were excited about it. And I think about all the different things that we grew. Cucumbers and peppers and tomatoes, jalapenos, man, they were growing like crazy.
Raspberries.
Those were hard to use before we could use.
We gave them away.
Yeah.
We gave so many away.
Strawberries and all that kind of stuff. And they loved just checking on it. They didn't love having to water it all the time so much, but once they started to see the fruit and the vegetables grow and they were able to eat the fresh stuff, that really helped them to see the value of it. So every single one of them could do that if it's something that they chose to do.
Yeah, and it was so fun because at the beginning of the season, we would go out. I chose not to do seeds. I chose to buy small plants. We would go out and they would all get to kind of talk together about what they wanted to grow this year and how they plan to use it. It was a great experience.
Well, and some people are like, well, what do we need? That's an outdated skill to have. We can just go to the grocery store. But we may not always have the food supply chain that we have now.
That's
I mean,
right.
one of the things 2020 taught us is that things can be shut down pretty quickly. And so what happens if the food supply chain isn't working like it should? Do you have the skills? Do your kids have the skills to be able to produce food on their own and help supplement some of those things?
And it can be a great way to save money. If you do it right. You can do it wrong and it can cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and we're talking about, we hit on like nutrition and all that.
Yeah.
Most of the food, we have no idea where it comes from or what's happened to it. But if you're the one who's grown it,
Yep.
you know exactly what's been put in the soil, what's been put on the plants themselves. And so that's a big part of it too. And we know a lot of people who choose to grow their own fruits and vegetables and raise their own livestock and chickens and everything for that purpose. Like
Yeah.
no matter what happens to the food supply chain, they know their family's taken care of. And I respect that. And not just that, there's a lot of good life lessons that come from that. Patience and hard work and responsibility and dedication and all of those things. But
and fruit for your labor.
just having that knowledge of how to do that, if they ever need it, it's a great life skill for them to have.
And I'll tell you, the sweet spot for gardening with your children is between 5 and 12. 5 years old and 12 years old. That's your sweet spot, because they're not, running off to do their own thing and have their own jobs and all the extra sports and stuff necessarily. And it just seems to be the perfect time. Now we cannot have a garden right now. I would love to. I miss it. But I know that it's not practical in our season because all of our kids are teenagers. They're all going in different directions. Thomas and I have our toe dipped in so many things.
Yeah.
And so I just can't have a garden right now. But when they were 5 to 12, their lives were so much more simplified. It's basically school, church, and playing with friends. So add in gardening at that time. That's your sweet spot, guys. Home and family management is the last thing we're going to talk about as we wrap up this episode today. Thinking about things like creating lists, calendars, scheduling, how to manage your home. Things like, when do we clean? When do we grocery shop? All of that stuff.
When do we change the batteries in our smoke detectors, the filters in our furnace?
And air conditioning and
all those things.
All that stuff. Cleaning out the dryer vent. All the stuff. So just talking about home management, and you may want to give them a responsibility and say, okay, your responsibility is going to be changing the batteries in the smoke detector, and it's your responsibility also to say when do we do that, or the filters, or whatever you want to do. And then, give them the space to do it, but make sure you're still watching because those things are important.
They are kids.
They're still kids. But things like, when do we have to mow the yard? All that stuff, like just that management of the people and the home and the facility itself, that is something that needs to be taught before they go out and try to run their own home. So that's something that you can help them with.
Learning how to plan the family schedule.
Exactly. That's what I do. That's my job in our home. And thank God for the fact that everyone has a cell phone. We do a family text, and I can very easily be like, this is happening at 2. This is happening at 3. You have to be here at 4. Thomas, you're going to be the transportation. All of that happens on our text thread. We were just talking at Ladies' Night last night about how to manage everyone's schedule. And one lady's like, get a big whiteboard. And another lady was like, it doesn't work. They don't read it.
We do not.
So maybe a whiteboard is your saving grace in your home. Fabulous. Let your child have a turn at scheduling in everything on the whiteboard. But that may not work for you. It doesn't work for us.
No.
We go digital because we're in different directions. So no matter where everyone is, everybody sees the information at the same time. Figure out what works for you, though, and then pass that information on to your child.
And so we want to end with family meeting tonight and just begin to talk about some of these things. And so depending on how old your kids are. And I think one of the funnest things to start with is to start with food.
Yeah.
Everybody loves food. They have different things that they really enjoy. And so start to talk about some of those things. And give your kids a night where they can pick what you're going to have that night. Now, obviously, you can give them some stipulations. It can't be pizza rolls. It's got to be something we actually cook and we make as a family or whatever else. But, all right. And then, okay, that's great. You want to make, let's say, orange chicken, since our kids just did that yesterday. That was the rice broccoli dish they made. So you want to make orange chicken. Great. What's the recipe? Make sure you got your list and give them all that responsibility to start doing some of those things. And then, okay, then we're starting to schedule. All right, what meal and what day are you going to make this? What about you?
When you have enough time.
Exactly. So you're throwing in some conversations about your family management, home management, all that kind of stuff. And then it's going to be your responsibility, maybe a different night each week. We're having a family meeting about these different things that we need to talk about personal finance, about your car, about personal safety and all those sorts of things where, okay, we're going to talk specifically about each one of these things on a different night, each one of these weeks.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you have found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
That was the most intense phone number ever. Well done, baby.
I'm trying something new.
I like it.
For our listening audience that actually listens this far.
It sounds like NPR.
Kudos to all of you.
Yes. And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we talk about dealing with anger. The beginning of dealing with anger is understanding where it comes from. And that is what we're going to look at next week.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, baby. Wow. So, what are your life skills that you guys need to work on?
Yeah, I'm always interested in the gaps. Like for me,
I know.
the gap was cars.
Sewing.
Well, sewing was a gap for sure. But cars were a huge gap that I was never taught.
Now, you did know how to change a tire. Who taught you to change a tire?
That I don't remember.
I think you maybe learned on your own.
Yeah, I don't remember who taught me. But at some point I was taught, when you're loosening and tightening, you don't go in a circle. You kind of go in a star pattern.
To get the lug nuts off.
And to tighten them. So you just keep going around a star pattern. But I don't remember who taught me that. But I remember my dad often working on our cars, but I would just be handing him the tools. There was never any instruction like this is what you do.
Yeah.
So now I know very little, but I know what I need to know, I guess.
That's right.
So what was it for you? What's the gap for you that you got to fill in? We all have them.
Yeah, we do.
Hers is changing a tire.
I don't know how to change it. I don't know how to change a tire. I've never done it. My dad did teach me how to do it, but I've never had to do it because I got married to this guy at 18. So he's done it for me since then.
Yeah.
And I hope I'll never have to change a tire ever.
My plan is to have each of our daughters change a tire before they leave the house. Like even just in the driveway.
Well, and it's funny because from our generation, because we're elderly now, you couldn't YouTube it.
Right.
Someone had to teach you to change a tire. I think when you were a teenager specifically, that may have even been before the Books for Dummies series, where you could go to the library and check out how to change a tire for dummies.
Yeah.
I don't know if that even existed when you were a teenager. So like back then, I don't know. I guess there's probably library books that you could have checked out.
Yeah.
But other than that, it wasn't easy. Nowadays, it's much easier to learn how to do things if you have a desire to learn. But we got to teach our kids.
Yeah, we do. And with that, we're going to go on. So have a great week.
Bye.